The chamber doors closed slowly, leaving an echoing thud as they shut, then metal against metal as a loud scraping of a lock echoed. This chamber was roughly a quarter of one circle, with rows of seats, 12 seats rising as they went further back. The first 2 rows were of the 5 major houses within Damarkun, then 2 more rows rising back to cover for the invited factions outside of the city. The chamber was dark. The lights fixed to the walls were not lit, and the only light available was the individual Kevlar lighting floating silently over the heads of individuals there. The chamber had a central place for the speaker, then 2 seats nearby, and directly behind 3 more seats slightly raised. Then behind these were what seemed to be more seats, but there was no hiding this. The chamber was set up to show power, and those who held it.
"Thank you for responding at such short notice,"
came a voice from one of the 5 individuals standing in the center. Each wore a formal stole that draped over their shoulders. The long, embroidered bands hung down the front of their dark robes, each one embroidered with silk that matched the banners hanging silently at the back of the chamber. A tower, a lion, floating rings encircling an open book.
"We don't have much time. Lead elements of the black and silver have already arrived."
Heads turned to the man under the black stag.
"The second corps is here already,"
came a woman's voice from under the lion.
"Lead elements,"
the man replied.
"The rest of the corps won't be far behind."
"Then he is close also,"
whispered the man wearing the symbol of golden scales over a river.
"No, he is already here,"
replied the woman standing beneath the silver tower. This changed the room, and the 5 of them exchanged uneasy glances. There was an uncomfortable silence.
"How long do we have?"
asked the man wearing the symbol of an open book surrounded by rings. There was another pause.
"A few hours at best,"
the woman wearing the tower replied.
"So what are we to do? The woman has been here now several days, and we have not been told anything."
"And where is Drift?"
Eyes shifted in the direction of the silver tower.
"We don't know for sure, but he was seen boarding a Skyrunner, and Skyfleet are not here to tell us why."
Theron gave the woman with the tower an irritated look.
"They were not invited,"
she replied dismissively.
"House Kalis, I must protest,"
came a stern reply from the man under the open book.
"It's protocol for the great houses to all speak at the same time. We share knowledge, we don't—"
"House Seraphel,"
Kalis interrupted.
"have you not been listening to what has been said? We don't have time."
The man immediately seemed disarmed and lowered his head, muttering.
"This is highly irregular."
"Focus,"
came the sharp interruption from Kaldane.
"Kalis is correct. We don't have time. So Drift has vanished and leaves the young woman alone in the city. Something is going on, and we are not being told everything."
"Anything?"
came the reply from the man wearing scales. There was another pause before someone found the courage to ask what many were already thinking.
"Do you think she is the one in the prophecy?"
The woman under the lion seemed nervous when mentioning this.
"Theron, there is no mention of a prophecy in the official annals."
The response from Seraphel was immediate and authoritative.
"Not the official annals, no. But what of the unofficial ones? The secret ones?"
Caldrain replied, his tone indicating he knew more than he was supposed to.
"Those scriptures are pure speculation. They have no substance or weight to what we use officially here for the city."
Seraphel defended his position.
"What hidden annals?"
The man wearing the symbol of scales clearly appeared confused.
"Aurelian, for centuries it's been known that there are annals that were removed from the official texts."
Kalis now stepped in.
"If such annals exist, then they were removed and discarded for a reason."
Seraphel defended their position.
"To wipe the truth under the carpet,"
Theron said in a low, hushed tone. The man from Seraphel was now clearly agitated.
"It's a prophecy. You can't wipe it under a carpet, foolish woman."
The speaker from Kalis arched her eyebrow and a sly smile escaped her lips.
So there is a prophecy.
Seraphel was now clearly angered, but felt he was in a battle he could not win, so did not reply.
So, what do we do with her?
The representative of Aurelian asked. The chamber seemed destined to fall into a thoughtful silence, but it was not given time. Caldrain already seems to have a plan.
We do not know what threat she poses. Until we finish our investigations, she should be arrested and her freedom removed.
Theron stiffened their posture, clearly not comfortable with this aggressive approach.
This is rather preemptive, don't you think?
Not really, why? She is a potential risk. We don't know who or what she is. It's prudent to act first.
Aurelian considered this.
Is this how we greet visitors to the city now? We don't know who they are, so we arrest them? Can you imagine what this would do for trade if the wider population learned that Damarkin now arrests people if they don't arrive with a complete history of their journey? I would like to remind Caldrain that Damarkin is not at war, nor has it been for over 700 years. Damarkin has prospered for many centuries without chains, and we see no reason to begin that now.
Kalis glanced between the two of them, seemingly mildly amused.
Very well, Aurelian. We are listening. What is your suggestion?
We do nothing. We observe, make her feel welcome, give her support, not oppress. It could prove lucrative.
Thank Esau we don't have the market traders in charge of security for this city,
Caldrain muttered.
Well, I don't completely agree with Caldrain. We should not arrest her, but we can escort her out, send her back through the gate where she was discovered.
Theron shook her head. She seemed frustrated, even embarrassed over that statement.
You presume the future, and our image will bend as you see fit. You do know Damarkin already has an image that is tarnished. We are seen as elitist, arrogant, acting above our place in the world. Now we exile strangers because we don't like the feel. This is wrong on many levels.
The chamber was now forming sides. The atmosphere was tangible, tense, and the pressure was still growing.
You're being dramatic, Theron. People will see it as Damarkin protecting the realm, like we always do.
Protect?
Theron fired back instantly.
Protect the world from a young woman. A young woman who needed medical attention, has done us no harm. I fear your overconfidence of how the world views this city is very different to reality.
There it was. The line was at last drawn. She knew the opposition. Now it was time to shut it down.
House Kalis acknowledges House Theron's objection. Shall we vote on this?
She seemed confident. She had read the room and felt it was time to press for an outcome. Time was not on their side.
I call for a vote on her immediate arrest, then taken to the gate she came through and sent back through.
She was sure that by including her arrest, this would secure the vote from Caldrain. Seraphel instantly stepped forward with a counter-proposal.
House Seraphel has a counter-proposal. We wait for Drift to return and benefit from his knowledge.
Kalis frowned ever so slightly. That was a strong counter-proposal. She hadn't anticipated Seraphel playing the Drift card. Even so, she remained composed and professional.
Very well. Who is in favor of this woman's immediate arrest, in the interest of public safety?
Kalis deliberately chose her words. Fear can be played well if one knew what chords to play. Kalis and Caldrain raised their hands instantly, but the rest did not. There was a pause, a long pause, whilst they waited for one more hand to rise, but none came. Kalis was clearly uncomfortable and frustrated, but she remained composed, at least to the naked eye.
Very well. 2 votes for arrest. And now we vote to wait for Drift.
She still held on to a slim chance. If one did not vote, that left 2 against 2, and she was the leader of the House this month. She carried the forwarding vote, should things end in a tie. Seraphel and Theron rose their hand in opposition. All eyes now fell upon Aurelin, who clearly enjoyed this moment, making them all remind themselves on his previous statement, who held the most power in Damarkin. Aurelin kept a straight face, and confidently but slowly raised his hand. There was no mistaking the fire flashing through Kaelus's eyes, but she remained professional.
Very well. Vote is carried. We await Drift's returns, and be it on your heads should this go wrong.
Kaelus then stepped closer as if to whisper something in the ear of Caldrain, but stopped instantly. Somewhere outside, distant horns now rang out in one continuous call. There was a pause, then again, this time closer. Seraphel smiled a little, watching Kaelus.
The second corps. They have arrived.
Time was up. Lemeneth has spent the best part of her morning exploring more of the gardens. The architecture was phenomenal, and she tried to imagine how long it took to build this city. She still struggled to fully understand Keflor. The Hall of Remembrance claimed it was not magic at all, merely a strange metallic stone found far to the southeast that floated once warmed by sunlight. Lemeneth stopped suddenly and sniffed the air. Baking bread. Lemeneth groaned and reminded herself just how hungry she was. She followed the smell, which took her through the garden's meandering pathways that eventually widened out into a large, sun-washed terrace that sat adjacent to the well-kept lawns. The Honey Vine was this establishment's name, a large tavern that had no doors or windows, just white stone arches that gave support to the wide opening before her. Looking around, she whispered to herself,
"How beautiful. Why didn't I discover this sooner?"
Here and there was tables and chairs, with pale silk canopies offering shade to those sitting under them. Around these scattered tables, she could see nobles, officers, and travelers eating and drinking beneath the golden light the canopies offered. The setting seemed very peaceful. The gentle clinking of glasses as people held conversation, bottles of wine in ice buckets whose ice didn't seem affected by the blistering heat. A waitress had just finished placing a bottle of red at a customer's table when Lemeneth's eyes was drawn to the chalkboard. The menu was literally removing the red wine from the board right before her eyes. The waitress had noticed Lemeneth reading the board and apologized that this particular wine was no longer available, then scurried past back inside. She gave a blink and sighed to herself.
I don't know if I will ever get used to this place.
The waitress now returned with a warm smile, inviting her to take a seat. Lemeneth sat down, then suddenly realized she had no means for payment.
I'm sorry, but I seem to have left my money back.
The waitress listened, then smiled, recognizing her as Drift's guest, and explained that the bill was already taken care of. Lemeneth ordered a meal, fresh bread, and the honey mead that seemed the tavern's speciality. The waitress took her order and disappeared back inside. Lemeneth made herself comfortable whilst waiting for the waitress to work on her order. The sounds here were soft, non-intrusive. The trickling water of fountains felt far off, even though they were a few feet away. She could see bees buzzing around from flower to flower, and it dawned on her that even within this tranquil and relaxed energy, just below the surface, things were still moving at an industrious pace, at least for the bees. The waitress returned now with a chilled bottle and an elegant, tall, thin glass. She poured the mead into it and placed the bottle next to it. Pouring the mead, she asked Lemeneth if she wanted sparkling or still, to which Lemeneth replied, "Sparkling," more out of curiosity than decision. The waitress didn't hesitate, though. They gave the edge of the glass a flick of her fingernail, making the glass ring. Instantly, bubbles formed, and the mead sparkled. Lemeneth studied the glass for a moment before reaching out to lift it. The glass responded instantly by sliding towards her hand and meeting her halfway. Lemeneth jumped with surprise. Then she remembered the merchant in the city. That glass did the same thing. Slowly, she lifted the glass to her lips and took a sip. It felt chilled, refreshing. The bubbles tickled her nose, and the sweetness was just right. Lemeneth closed her eyes and sank back into her chair. For the first time since she arrived, she felt more at ease. Her eyes closed, and she let the moment sink in. It felt magical. It felt safe. Her eyes opened dreamily to a sound far off in the distant. A horn. Then, after some moments, another. Lemeneth glanced around her. Nobody seemed bothered. Nobody appeared worried. She took another sip and smiled.
I could get used to this,
she told herself.
The waitress returned once more, carrying a bowl of broth and a dish with carved fresh bread slices.
Lemeneth sat up straight and placed the glass down. She was so hungry. The waitress set the meal down and bowed her head gently, telling her that if she needed anything, just call and she will be right over. Lemeneth smiled, but her attention was taken by activity within the tavern itself. There was movement. Then a man walked out from the bar and among the tables. He was a middle-aged man with long, dark brown hair, a neat, trimmed beard and mustache. He looked traveled and carried a lute and flute on his person. She was drawn to his eyes. They seemed kind and welcoming. Yet there was a wisdom here. This man had seen many things. The man made his way through the tables. People started calling out and clapping. "Elric! Merry meet! Great to see you again!" Lemeneth watched in fascination whilst taking a bite of her bread and broth. He was clearly well known. Perhaps a bard. He certainly fit the image. The man sat himself not far from her. His eyes caught hers, and he smiled warmly. Lemeneth suddenly felt very exposed and blushed deeply. Merrymeet made himself comfortable, placed his flute at his side, and his lute in his lap. "Give us a song!" came the shouts. "Pale lady!" came another call. Merrymeet held up his hand and laughed. Okay. It's good to see you all again. Some new faces, too, I see." Merrymeet's eyes glanced to Lemeneth, and she suddenly felt very exposed. How does he know? He must meet thousands of people, she thought to herself. Pale lady, eh? Well, I think that's very apt, don't you agree? Elric glanced over to the bar, where there was a fiddle player ready. Elric gave him a nod and held his lute ready. Lemeneth's heart raced. She had forgotten how he made her feel exposed. His voice felt gentle, warm, like a friend you trusted completely. She sat with anticipation of his song.
I saw her by the roadside fire where travelers rest their bones. She stood apart from laugh and song like she had none to call her own. Her cloak was plain, her hands were bare, no jewel, no mark, no claim. But every soul that glanced her way forgot their drink and name. Oh, the pale lady walks alone where the quiet shadows lie, with the winter hair and violet eyes that never quite meet mine. She don't speak much, she don't stay long, like mist before the dawn. But something in her passing step says she's where she belongs.
Lemeneth was totally lost in his words. It was clearly a song popular among the locals. She wondered if it was a song sung about someone here, or maybe he met on his travels, or just a well-made song.
Oh, the pale lady walks alone where the long roads twist and wind, with eyes that hold 1,000 nights and none that let you in. She don't ask coin, she don't take rest, she don't look back or stay. But if she walks beside your path, you'll live to see the day. So fill your cup and let her pass. Don't ask her for her name, for some are born to walk the dark, so we don't have to the same.
Lemeneth was torn from her thoughts by the cheers and applause from the locals. Putting Spoon down, she raised her hands and gave her own applause in appreciation. Elric smiled and gave an appreciative nod to the people listening. Lemeneth felt overwhelmed by this man, not in a fearful way, but the way he held the room's attention. People respected him, loved him. She could hear people talking among themselves, saying, "I love his songs. How long is he staying? I don't want to miss him when he sings next." Lemeneth took another sip of her mead and continued with her meal whilst watching Merrymeet and the room dynamics. "Give us a road song, Elric!" "Yes, give us a song from outside the city," came the calls. Merrymeet smiled and made himself comfortable again. "A roadside song. Let me think." Merrymeet struck a few chords to find the right key, then nodded to himself and began.
Sit a while, friend, by the fire's light. You've come far on your way. The road ahead runs straight and long, just follow it till day. But take no turn where trees lean in, no matter what they say. For not all paths were meant for feet that wander from the way. So stay on the road, friend, stay on the line. Don't follow where shadows bend, for here sits a place where the old roads cross, and not all crossings end.
Lemeneth stopped everything she was doing. This was a weave song. She was sure of it. This man must know about the weave. Her mind raced, but she kept reminding herself about her initial meeting with Drift. "Oh, we know about the weave, don't worry."
It's not your fault you cannot see the things that wait so near. Not every world is meant to meet or be perceived as here. But I have walked where edges thin, where sight and truth divide, and I would rather keep you here than see you step inside. So stay on the road, friend, stay on the line. Don't follow where shadows bend, for here sits a place where the old roads cross, and not all crossings end. I speak it soft, I speak it true. No need to be afraid, just stay on the road, friend, stay with me, and you'll be safe.
Merrymeet finished his song, and there was no doubt this man knew about the weave far more than just a folk song. She watched him leave his seat and head for the bar to order himself a drink, and for a while the tavern returned to normal. People talked among themselves. A few people tried singing the songs he had just sung. Badly. Lemeneth finished her meal and got to her feet. She felt a little too overwhelmed sitting so close to him, and felt more comfortable in the garden. Collecting her glass, she walked back into the sun and sat herself down by a nearby fountain. It did not take long for Elric to return to his spot and continue his tales. But none hit her like the previous one, though she listened carefully to every word in every line. Such was his mastery of the musical word. For the next hour, she listened quietly. Time here seemed to stand still, or had no meaning in the presence of this man. Eventually, Merry Meet raised his hand as if to say, "Enough." And with a smile, he packed his instruments away, shook a few people's hands, and talked with others, though Lemeneth could not hear what was being said. And with that, he was gone. And for a moment, the world felt emptier for it. But he seemed to be well known, so she hoped she would be fortunate enough to hear him sing again. Lemeneth looked around the gardens again. The place was busy. It seemed Damarkin never slept, for it was always busy. Her eye was caught by movement on the far side of the gardens, an archway leading into the gardens, and Lemeneth froze. Emerging through the crowd came two individuals, a man in black and silver armor, and a woman with white hair and black leather armor. She simply could not take her eyes off them as they made their way across the far side of the gardens, following the path that led to the tower complex. The man was average height and build, his hair long and black, falling around his shoulders. She could not quite make out his features, nor the woman alongside him, but his presence was surely felt. People stepped aside for them both. Some just stood in silence. Others bowed their heads. All were ignored as they walked along the path. They did not speak to each other, nor anyone else. There was purpose in their walk. Lemeneth carefully placed her glass down at the edge of the fountain as she watched. Releasing the glass, she accidentally dipped her finger into the water. "I see you." A voice in her head made her leap up in shock. She turned and faced the fountain, but it was just water. But she heard the voice in her head. A man's voice, calm, almost whispering. Lemeneth turned back to the couple once more. Neither had turned or even glanced her way, but there was a realization emerging within her. She had seen this man before. Heart racing, she turned and walked briskly back out of the gardens and made her way to the halls of remembrance. This time, it was Lemeneth who knew exactly where she was going. Entering the halls, she made her way as fast as she could without running back to the cavalry section and just beyond. She stopped and looked wide-eyed. The statue she had seen just the day before, the statue she walked past. This was it. It was him. Like Drift's statue, it didn't feel grand as in large, but unlike Drift's statue, this held presence and an aura that made her tremble. The statue showed the same style armor, same looks. She looked around desperately for a statue or painting of the woman, but she could not see one. She scurried down the hall further, then back up again, but she saw no painting or imagery of the white-haired woman. Returning to the statue, stood in front of it, and ran her trembling fingers through her long black hair. Now there were two that lived for centuries, she told herself.
"Milady?"
Came a familiar voice. Lemeneth turned to find Tristram standing beside her.
"I have been asked to escort you to Drift. He wishes to speak with you."
Wiping the palms of her hands nervously in her dress, she gave a nervous nod and followed Tristram back out of the hall. Tristram walked with Lemeneth until they reached the door of Drift's study. He gave her a friendly and reassuring smile, lowered his hand, and backed away. There was no hiding this. She was terrified. The last time she saw Drift, he had come to her. It was her ground, her boundary. Now she was stepping into the unknown. Lemeneth raised her hand and gave a gentle knock on the heavy wooden door. The impact was barely audible, and she instantly felt silly, raising her hand a second time to strike the door harder when, click, the door swung open, just a little, and a familiar voice called from inside.
"Lemeneth, thank you. Please do come in."
Stepping through, she turned and closed the door behind her. She had never seen Drift's study, but it took her breath away. Bookshelves everywhere. Of course he was a mage, but there was more. The room felt enclosed and small, yet when you looked more carefully, it was several times larger. Very deceiving. Low lighting hung in the air, giving the room deep shadows everywhere. Drift sat at his desk, which was full of maps, open books, and other devices. Smiling, he gestured for her to take a seat. Stepping forward to take her seat, she was now aware they were not alone. Her heart pounded as she sat down, her eyes looking back and forth nervously between the people present. Sat just to her side was the man she saw in the gardens, and lurking in the shadows, not sitting, leaning against a bookshelf with arms folded, the woman with white hair. She drew a breath. She had violet eyes. With winter hair and violet eyes. That was the song ringing in her head. The man had long black hair that hung in gentle waves upon his shoulders. He was not heavy-set, but he certainly had a powerful frame. He had deep, dark eyes, and she felt as though he could see right through her. He looked no older than a man in his early 40s, but his eyes said a different story.
Laminith, this is Navarre, a longtime friend of mine. We go way back. You're safe here. Navarre is here to help.
She offered Navarre a nervous smile and shifted in her seat. Navarre did not speak. He studied her, not in a threatening way, but it felt uncomfortable nonetheless.
And this is Yariel, the best sword arm in Damarkus.
Laminith glanced over to Yariel, who also said nothing. She had white hair and violet eyes, but there was more. She was beautiful, breathtaking. Her skin was like porcelain, not a blemish to be seen. High cheekbones of an Eldar, athletic figure. Her leather armor was built for flexibility, not strength.
So, my dear, I apologize for leaving so fast, but I had to leave and go back to the place you were discovered.
Why? Is there a problem?
Laminith asked. Drift paused and glanced to Navarre before returning his gaze to Laminith.
Potentially,
he replied softly. She didn't like the sound of this, nor where the conversation was leading.
What do you mean, potentially?
Laminith, you were discovered about half a mile from the Ashwine Weave Gate, unconscious. The Lakonza found you and transferred you to the Majestic, but we didn't look at the gate. You were already some distance from it.
And?
She asked, nervous, not sure she wanted to know the answer, but felt compelled to ask.
The gate has collapsed. It's gone.
Drift lowered his tone, but looked directly at her. Laminith frowned, taking stock of the information just handed to her.
You think I did this? That I had a hand in it?
Drift waited, trying to find the right words, then simply nodded before adding,
Yes, we do, but not intentionally.
Drift took out the stone he had been carrying and placed it on his desk. It was crumbling and fragmented, more like black chalk.
This stone was once vibrant and colorful, but in the few days you have been here, this is what has happened. And the Weave Gate, it's the same.
But what does this mean? I haven't done anything. What's happening?
Her voice trembled, and she wrung her hands together nervously in her lap.
This is why we are here now. We are going to find a solution,
Drift said reassuringly. Laminith felt tears forming in her eyes. This was such a beautiful day. Now this had wrenched that away from her. Yariel rolled her eyes, but said nothing. She stepped away from the bookshelf and walked quietly among the books. She felt predatory, stalking. She looked like she was casually taking in the titles of the book, but the way she moved, it felt dangerous. graceful, but deadly.
You can fix this, right? Tell me you can fix this drift.
Lemoneth's voice wavered.
That is why we are here. We are certainly going to try.
Drift assured.
Whilst I was away, I consulted the advice of a weave walker, and he thinks you're misaligned.
In what?
She replied, unsure what was meant by this.
We believe you are weave-born, not born in the weave, but born of the weave. And when you stumbled through this gate...
Lemoneth frowned, struggling to comprehend the words being said.
Go on.
Well, we don't think you were made with any thought. We think you're a byproduct, a random evolution of the weave, and it just made you.
She could feel her fingers tightening into balls and forming fists, not from rage, but from trying to remain composed.
Am a byproduct? A random mistake?
Lemoneth lowered her head. This explained her lack of memory, but the facts were hard to swallow.
We don't think you were designed to walk through a gate. You found your way here purely through chance. And when you did this, you fractured yourself and broke the gate.
Lemoneth frowned and raised her head again.
Am fractured? What does that mean?
Lemoneth, you are unique. We don't know for sure ourselves, but we think you exist in more than one dimension. And when you came through the gate, you are somehow not aligned.
There was a moment of silence. She had felt out of place, not part of this world since she had woken from her coma. The gardens today was the first time she felt whole. But even then, it wasn't complete.
We think we might be able to fix this, if we can get you to a gate,
Drift added.
So what are we waiting for? Navarre and Yariel will get me to a gate, yes? Then we can fix this.
In theory, yes.
Drift sighed.
But it's never that simple.
Make it simple, Drift. Tell me what I need to do.
Her voice now shaken and showing signs of frustration, even anger.
This is the problem, Lemoneth. We only know of one remaining functional gate. If we let you pass through it, and that fails too, this world is isolated. We lose the gates.
Drift paused, then spoke carefully.
And leaving you here, well, we think you're slowly tearing this world apart.
She did not want to hear this. She lowered her head, and tears rolled down her cheeks. Drift said no more. He let the moment sink in. Let mind find clarity in all this mess. Lemoneth's eyes were closed. She sobbed gently to herself. For a brief moment she felt happiness, only for it to be torn away. Then her mind snapped back to the moment, feeling a hand gently covering her entangled fingers. She looked up, expecting to see Drift, but it was Navarre who had reached out, his eyes searching deep within her as he spoke.
I see you.
Lemoneth shuddered. So it was him that spoke those words in the garden. Her jaw dropped open, but silence was all she could offer.
We have a plan, Lemoneth.
She took a breath to try and stop her sobs. There was something about this man. When he spoke, it felt as if he only saw you. Nobody else mattered. She felt his hand gently tighten around her, as if to reassure her.
So, what is the plan?
She asked softly. Navarre released her hands and sat back to let Drift continue.
Using the Eldar Gate to fix you is a huge risk, but I promise you, we will use it if we have no other choice.
Drift waited before continuing.
But there is an alternative. We know of another gate.
Lemoneth glanced between the two men.
There is what our historians call the Old Gate. It's a myth for many, but I have been assured that it exists.
Lemeneth listened to Drift's every word.
The old gate is said to be to the far west of here, to a place few have traveled. It is said to be lost, broken, misaligned.
So what use is this to us? To me?
Well, it's the oldest known gate. It existed before our history, and nothing is known about it, but I am told it is not only the oldest gate in history, but also the most powerful.
But it's dead, misaligned. How can that possibly help?
Well, it's out of alignment, as are you. We think maybe you and the gate might connect with less interference. It's a long shot, but I have been assured this is our strongest option.
And if that fails, I will get you to the Eldar Gate,
Navarre added.
Lemeneth, this is not going to be easy. The route is dangerous. We don't know the way, but you're in the best hands.
Navarre got out of his seat and stepped over beside Lemeneth. He lowered himself down on his haunches beside her and smiled gently.
You're the one, aren't you? In the hall. The one who saved Damarkin?
Navarre took her hand gently in his and stared deep into her eyes once more.
700 years ago, I made a promise. I would protect Damarkin or die trying. I promise the same to you now. I will protect you, or I will die trying.
Lemeneth shivered and offered a weak smile. His words, there was no drama, just quiet reassurance, and it felt comforting. Her attention turned to Yariel, who was still prowling around the shadows of the study.
And you?
Yariel slid the book she was pretending to read back into position. She did not make eye contact.
I keep his promises.
Lemeneth waited for more, but Yariel offered nothing. This woman terrified Lemeneth, and she had only just met her. She felt dangerous, predatory. Even in this study, she prowled rather than just listened. Yet if this was the woman that Elric had sung about earlier, then there had to be a softer side.
I have had your armor cleaned and ready for use. We are heading for cooler weather, so your current clothing isn't suitable for traveling.
Lemeneth considered the information going around in her head, then looked up to Drift.
When do we leave?
At dawn tomorrow. We have a long journey ahead of us.
She nodded thoughtfully, then rose to her feet.
Then, if you will excuse me, I need to prepare.
Drift and Navarre both stood and nodded their heads. Yariel just watched and said nothing. Lemeneth offered a slight smile to everyone, then turned and left the study, closing the door softly behind her. Drift and Navarre sat once more.
So, what do you think? And Yariel, did you have to appear so threatening?
Yariel sauntered across the study and sat on the edge of Drift's desk, one foot on the floor to support her.
She is fragile. I have to weigh her up. If she buckles just seeing me for the first time, then we have serious issues. She is scared, but she is brave. I don't see or feel her retreating from the situation. She doesn't know how to tackle it, but she is willing to try.
Drift listened to Yariel. She was often difficult during a first encounter. It was her way of probing for weakness, but she was honest in her assessment of those she saw.
Her emotions will be the danger.
Navarre leaned back in his chair, watching both Yariel and Drift.
It's clear she is scared and unprepared, and as her guides and protectors, we don't know if she will lose her way and let her power overwhelm her.
Yariel studied the map on Drift's desk, as if already absorbing their journey.
And what power do you think she has, Drift? What do we need to be ready for?
She is Weaveborn, or at least I think she is. The evidence leans heavily into this. So if this is true, her power has its origins in the Weave. Random, chaotic, unpredictable. It suggests she might affect dimensional space around her. From what we have seen of the collapsed gate and the stone, this would seem it's just a byproduct. We need to be careful not to get her too close to anything influenced by the weave. It might have unforeseen circumstances.
I will focus on this. She needs training, discipline. I can show her restraint, guide her with her emotions.
What did Ilir say regarding the old gate?
Little is known about it. Ilir says the gate is closed, or broken. He has searched for it in the weave, but there is no connection on that side, so he cannot pinpoint its exact location. But he says that many records point to the Titan's spine close to where the Tower of Stars is thought to be.
Yariel moved her eyes to the island on the map.
Nobody goes there, Drift. They say it's cursed, that the island carries bad omens.
Drift listened and gave a nod.
Well, someone lived there. The Tower of Stars was constructed there.
I don't like it. It's too close to Aquila. Is there any reason why nothing was ever heard of from the Tower of Stars?
Drift thought a moment and studied the map with Yariel.
The tower is said to have been constructed before our history. There is no record of its construction or who made it. Just some scraps of texts that were washed up in shipwrecks years ago.
Yariel lifted her gaze to give Drift a sideways glance.
This just gets better and better,
she said with the smallest of smirks on her lips.
Drift, you amaze me. You ask me for an assessment when none of us has any idea what we face. Who is assessing us?
Drift smiled.
Your presence, your legacy is enough. Yariel, you're the best of them. If you can't keep us safe, then no one can.
Yariel slid off the desk, walked to the door of Drift's study, and collected her weapon belt. She fastened it and grabbed the door handle.
I am going to explore the city. I have had enough being caged here. It's time to get a feel for the pulse in the city. I will be here at dawn.
Navar gave Yariel a nod of his head, and she stepped through the door.
The Chamber of Houses awaits us, old friend.
Drift rose from his chair.
These are the battles I hate the most,
Navar mumbled, rising from his chair also, and following Drift out of his study.